fog was alive. It breathed with slow, unnatural rhythms, weaving through the twisted trees and broken ground of the dead forest. It never lifted, never shifted, and never receded. It clung to the earth like a shroud heavy with silence, except for the whispers. The whispers never stopped. Elias had heard them every night since his arrival in the village of Breakridge, a place carved from stone and sorrow at the edge of the world. The village sat like a wound upon the land, old and gray, half buried in the ever-thickening mist that rolled down from the hills beyond. He had come to Breckridge as a scholar, an outsider, drawn by rumors and fragments of half-forgotten lore, stories of the fogbound guides, ancient beings who led the dead into the unknown. No one from the lowlands spoke of them willingly, and even fewer dared to journey into the mountains to see if the tales were true. But Elias had, and he regretted it already. Breakridge was dying. He could see it in the hollow eyes of its people, in the brittle quiet of its streets, and the rot that crept through its once sturdy wooden homes. The villagers spoke little, and when they did, it was in hushed, urgent tones. None would tell him about the figures in the fog, though they all flinched when he asked. And now, standing at the edge of the forest, alone, Elias was about to find out why. The forest's trees were long dead, their skeletal remains blackened and brittle, clawing upward like frozen screams. Bones littered the ground, deer, foxes, birds, and something else, something too large to be animal. Elias didn't dare look closely. He stepped carefully, his lantern flickering in the damp air, barely piercing the curtain of mist. The fog whispered around him, not wind, not the shifting of air, but actual voices. They slithered into his ears, too faint to understand, but too clear to ignore. They were calling. He felt them before he saw them. Dark figures emerged from the fog ahead, cloaked and hooded, moving in silent procession. Dozens of them, their steps slow and precise, their heads bowed. Each wore a long, tattered cloak that trailed the ground, and none made a sound. Elias froze, breath caught in his throat. The lantern shook in his grip, casting a golden halo that barely reached their feet. The line of figures moved past him without pause, their faces hidden, their hands folded within their robes. Then, one stopped. It turned its hooded head toward him. Elias's heart stuttered. A face stared back, or rather, the absence of one. The inside of the hood was darkness, deep and infinite. From within it, a whisper came, clearer than the rest. "You should not be here." Elias opened his mouth to reply, but no sound came. The figure raised a hand, skeletal, rotted, yet unblemished by time, and pointed behind him. "Follow or be lost." The figure turned and resumed walking. Elias hesitated, but something in his gut, fear, perhaps instinct, drove him forward. He followed the line of cloaked figures, drawn deeper into the fog, into the unknown. The path wound along the edge of a great cliff. Below, a chasm yawned, swallowing the world in mist and shadow. The figures moved without hesitation, walking a narrow trail that clung to the cliff's edge. One misstep would mean death, or worse. Elias stayed close, counting each breath, each step. The procession continued for what felt like hours. Time twisted in the fog. It might have been minutes or days. All he knew was that they were going somewhere, and he had to see where. Eventually, the ground leveled out. The path widened, opening into a plateau of stone and ash. In the center stood a massive archway, carved from black stone and veined with crimson light. The air around it shimmered, thick with power and dread. The figures stopped. One by one, they stepped through the archway and vanished. No sound, no light, no trace. Elias's breath came in ragged gasps. He knew this was the gate, the boundary between life and death, the place where souls passed on. And the fog-bound guides, they were the escorts, the silent shepherds of the dead. But why had they let him follow? As he stood, frozen, a whisper curled around him, close and cold. "You have seen. Now choose." Elias turned. The figure that had first spoken to him stood at his side, hand extended, palm open. In it lay a small stone, black as night, pulsing faintly. He reached out, fingers trembling, and took it. The world vanished. He awoke in darkness. The fog was gone. Elias stood alone in a vast cavern, the air dry and cold. Before him, a sea of figures, thousands, stood in silence, cloaked and hooded, waiting. A voice spoke, not from the air, but from within his mind. "You are chosen. You have taken the mark. Now, guide." His hand burned. The stone was gone. In its place, a mark scorched into his palm, glowing red. He had become one of them, and the fog was calling. Not just absence of light, a void, thick and suffocating, pressing on his chest with unseen hands. The air was still, yet full of presence, of eyes unseen and voices unheard. The mark on his palm pulsed softly, a dull red glow that offered no warmth. He wasn't sure how long he walked. Time had splintered. Minutes stretched like years, moments dissolved before they formed. He walked because he didn't know what else to do. The memory of the archway, of the guides passing through into nothingness, haunted him. Had he died? Was this death? "No," came a voice, not spoken but thought, slipping through his mind like a knife through silk. Elias turned. The darkness parted just enough to reveal a figure, cloaked and hooded, like those he had followed. It stood motionless, watching him. "You are between," the voice whispered again. "You have taken the mark. You cannot return. You are not yet guide. There is a path." Elias stepped closer. "What path? What am I?" The figure raised an arm, pointing behind him. A narrow bridge of black stone spanned a chasm he hadn't seen before, disappearing into the fog beyond. Below, an endless pit, a place of cold wind and distant wailing. "You must walk it. Alone." Elias hesitated. The bridge looked fragile, impossibly thin. He couldn't see where it led, but he had no choice, not anymore. Swallowing his fear, he stepped onto the bridge. Each step echoed like thunder in the silence. The stone beneath his feet felt alive, trembling faintly. Elias kept his eyes forward, afraid of what he might see if he looked down. The fog thickened as he walked, swallowing his form, until only the mark on his palm lit the way, a faint, flickering light. The whispers returned, louder this time, not random, not meaningless. They called his name. "Elias, Elias, Elias." He broke into a run. The bridge seemed endless, stretching forward forever. The whispers grew frantic, overlapping, drowning his thoughts. "Elias, turn back, come back. You are not one of them." He stumbled, falling to his knees. The fog wrapped around him like claws, and figures rose from it, faces pale and broken, eyes wide with terror, mouths open in silent screams. They reached for him, cold hands grasping. "Join us! Join us!" Elias screamed, lurching to his feet, and ran. He didn't know where he was going, only that he had to escape. And then, light. A pale glow ahead, soft and steady. The bridge ended at a door, tall and ancient, carved with runes that shifted and writhed. Elias reached out. The mark on his hand flared brightly, and the door opened. He fell through into light. The chamber beyond was vast and circular, its walls inscribed with symbols of power. Torches burned with pale blue flames, casting eerie shadows. In the center stood a circle of guides, unmoving, silent. They turned as one to face him. "You have crossed," a voice intoned, deep and cold. "You have borne the trial." Elias stood, shaking. What is this place?" "This is the Hall of Passage," another voice said. "Here, the chosen become. Here, the burden is accepted." The figures stepped aside, revealing a stone pedestal at the center of the room. Upon it lay a mask carved from bone, ancient and worn. Symbols etched into it glowed faintly. Elias approached, compelled. With the mask, the voices whispered, "You shall see. You shall hear. You shall guide." He lifted the mask. It was light, cold. As he placed it upon his face, his vision shattered. Memories not his own flooded in. He saw ages past, countless souls walking the path of the dead, led by guides cloaked in mist. He saw the first of them, Orathan, the original guide, who had made a pact with the veil between worlds. He saw the corruption, the hunger that now festered in the fog, devouring souls lost without a guide. He understood. Without the fogbound guides, the dead would be consumed, lost forever to the darkness between worlds. The guides existed not to lead the dead to peace, but to save them from eternal torment. The mask burned against his skin. His heart pounded. "You have seen," the voices said. "You know?" Elias fell to his knees. "I don't want this." Silence. "It is not want," the voices said. "It is need." The dead called. "Will you answer?" He wept. Then he stood. The village of Breakridge was silent when he returned. He wore the cloak now, the mask. He walked the streets as mist curled around him, and the villagers bowed their heads in reverence or fear. A child stepped forward, a girl, eyes wide and red with tears. "My brother, he died. They won't take him." Elias looked past her. A spirit, pale and lost, wandered near the edge of the village, confused, afraid. It was tethered by grief, unable to move on. He approached. The spirit turned to him, eyes pleading. And Elias spoke, not with his voice, but with the power of the guides. "Come, I will lead you." The spirit followed. Through the forest, to the path, to the archway. One soul saved. Many more waited. Elias walked into the fog. Elias became the guide. Days blurred into nights, and time lost its shape. Wrapped in mist, he walked the path between worlds, leading lost souls to the archway, watching them pass through, one after another, into the unknown. The burden pressed upon him, heavier with each step. But something had changed. The fog was darker now, heavier, and the whispers had grown frantic. The dead were not crossing as they once had. Some turned away, unable to find peace. Others were dragged back into the mist by unseen forces. Elias could feel it. Something was wrong. He returned to the Hall of Passage, seeking answers. The other guides waited in silence, unmoving. Elias removed his mask, his voice hoarse. "The fog is corrupted. The souls are in danger. Why?" No reply. He stepped forward, anger rising. "Why do you do nothing?" Stillness. A single voice replied, ancient and weary. "The shadow awakens." Elias frowned. "What shadow?" The room dimmed. A pulse rippled through the air. The torches flickered. "In the beginning," the voice continued, "the veil was thin, and Orathan made a pact to guide the dead and protect them. But the pact was broken. A force beyond the veil, a devourer of souls, was roused. It seeks to consume all." The chamber trembled. Symbols on the walls flared red. "The shadow has a name," the voice said. "Veyrath." Elias staggered. The name burned in his mind. He had seen it in visions. A darkness with no form, a hunger with no end. "What can be done?" he asked. "You must descend," the voice answered, "to the heart of the fog. There the shadow festers. It must be sealed." Elias nodded. He turned and walked toward the dark. The descent began at the chasm's edge beyond the forest, where the mist churned thick and foul. The air stank of rot and ash. Elias stepped carefully, lantern in hand, mask upon his face, cloak trailing. The deeper he went, the more the world died. No trees grew here, only broken stones, twisted bones, and echoes. Screams echoed from unseen mouths. Faces appeared in the fog, not souls, but things wearing their shapes, mocking, howling. Elias pressed on. Days passed, or hours. Time was a lie here. Eventually, he reached it. A massive crater, black and endless, filled with swirling fog and shadows. In its center stood a spire, ancient and cracked, pulsing with crimson veins. The source. Elias approached, but Veyrath was waiting. The fog writhed, coalescing into a monstrous shape, formless yet terrible. Eyes blinked open within the mist, hundreds of them, watching, judging. A voice boomed, shaking the earth. "You dare." Elias raised his lantern, its light flickering. "I do." "You are nothing," Veyrath hissed. "A mortal, clinging to power not your own. I have fed for centuries. I will feast on you." Elias stepped forward, the mark on his palm glowing. "No more." The shadow lunged. Elias stood firm. The battle was not of flesh and blood, but of will. The fog twisted around him, trying to crush his mind, to unravel his soul. Visions of death, pain, loss, the faces of those he had failed, surged before him. He faltered. Veyrath's laughter echoed. "You are weak." But from the mist, voices rose, those he had guided, souls he had saved. "Elias, stand." Their strength filled him. He raised his hand, the mark blazing. "I bind you," Elias cried. "By the pact of Orathan, I seal you." Light burst from him, pure and blinding. Veyrath screamed. The fog tore apart. The crater collapsed, and Elias fell into darkness. He awoke at the archway. The fog was clear. The sun shone, for the first time in memory. Breakridge bloomed with life. The dead no longer wandered. The guides were gone. Elias stood alone. The mask lay at his feet. He smiled, weary, broken, but free. The burden was over, but he would always hear the whispers, and he would remember.